As Senator Bonasak said, we work closely together, but in relation to the civil legal services, it's a point where we diverge in terms of this increase. And I just wanted to continue that discussion a little bit more. I looked at the the Task Force Permanent Commission's last report, and I just want to make sure that I read correctly that based on the Commission's finding that New York State realized $260 million in taxpayer savings in the form of reduced emergency shelter costs alone as a result of legal services. That was one of their
that's
findings?
Correct. That's correct. Yeah.
And that the overall finding that the overall investment in civil legal services has resulted in an overall economic benefit to New York State of $2.4 billion through 2014?
Yeah, I think that's correct, and that goes to the point that I made a moment ago, that investing in civil legal services in the end can save state and local government, significant amounts of money.
So if we were to cut out of the Judiciary budget the $15 million for civil legal services and dedicate it to a different purpose, as my colleague suggests, it would actually cost New York State money in this next year going forward?
Yes, there have been studies by economists that have suggested that expenditures on civil legal services is cost effective.
And could you just maybe go into a tiny bit more detail as to how the funding that's in the Judiciary budget for civil legal services is allocated around the state, and perhaps restate some of the services, the kinds of populations that benefit from civil legal services?
Yeah, the money is divided up based on a formula. The 200%, each county's population that's less than 200% of the federal poverty level. The formula is based on that, so it's equally divided to the state's 62 counties based on that formula. And the money goes to really kind of the essentials of life, people who find themselves in court without a lawyer, or would otherwise find themselves in court without a lawyer, in landlord-tenant proceedings, so facing eviction, foreclosure proceedings where people are facing the potential loss of their home, victims of domestic violence in family offense proceedings in the family court receive lawyers under this program. I mentioned veterans are a significant component of the people who benefit from these services, veterans who may be facing eviction, facing foreclosure, seeking disability benefits. And so those are some of the examples of the types of people who benefit from this program in every county in the state.
And I was just wondering, from the court's perspective, how do unrepresented litigants impact the functioning of the courts, people who come in without an attorney?
Yeah, well, actually, I can speak personally for this because I sit, in addition to my administrative responsibilities, I sit in the Supreme Court, and I can tell you from the court's perspective and the judge's perspective, when someone comes in without a lawyer, it's a night and day situation. It's very difficult for the judge because judges ethically can't advise litigants on the law. The court staff can't do that. People are basically on their own. It's not an equal playing field, obviously, when that happens. It's not, my own view, which I know is shared by the new chief judge, is that a justice system just doesn't make sense when you have hundreds of thousands of people coming into court without a lawyer. Often face their opponents, often represented by lawyers. It's not a justice system that we could all be proud of. When that's as serious a problem as it has been in New York.
And beyond just the impact on the individual litigant who's unrepresented, Does it also impact the courts? Are there additional delays? You mentioned the court staff that get or ask questions. Does it actually increase costs to the court system and use up resources that would not be needed if those litigants were represented?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the cases in which litigants are self-represented become more labor-intensive for the court, for the judge, for the judge's staff, for the clerk's office, for the court personnel. So yes, I would agree with that very much.
And to go to the defense side, I know and I agree with my colleague that there is a need for increased services for defendants, indigent defendants, particularly in first appearances that go beyond the Harrell decision. And I understand that the Indigent Legal Services Board has asked for increased resources to be able to address those needs, and I think that that is something, obviously, that personally I would support, and I think other members also. Can I just want to ask you a question about the staffing? You mentioned that there's been a reduction of 2,000 non-judicial employees, and I think you mentioned it was 12%. Is that correct?
Since 2009, that was the high-level mark for us. We have 2,000 fewer employees since that year.
And I probably should know the answer, but perhaps do you know how that compares to state agencies?
The executive branch?
Oh.
Yeah, for us, that's a 12% increase in the court system. The roughly 2,000 fewer employees. In the executive branch, depending on how you define the executive branch, but if you include CUNY and SUNY, the executive branch employment level since 2009 has dropped between 8 and 8.5%. So our employment level has declined more than the executive branch.